I want you to say this with me. I can teach myself Japanese. Did you say it? Sounds good, doesn't it? But do you believe it? Remember, 自分を信じていないやつは努力する価値はない. Now, of course, that's a quote from a cartoon character, but it remains the truth nevertheless. Now, you might not know where to start, but it's definitely something you can do. Yes, you can do. So, let's get started. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is find yourself a really good textbook. Now, some people will actually tell you that learning from a textbook is a waste of time, and that may actually be true for some people, but I do feel like the majority of self-learners, especially those living outside of Japan, will really want that solid foundation that a good textbook will provide. So with that being said, I personally would probably recommend the Genki series textbooks because I feel like it introduces the grammar and the reading and writing systems in a way that's pretty manageable for self-learners. Now, when I started my self-study, I actually went with a textbook called Japanese Demystified. Maybe a lot of you haven't heard of that textbook. The reason I actually went with this one is because it doesn't introduce any kanji for the most part whatsoever. Basically, everything is explained in either English or Romaji. Honestly, there's a lot of sense of accomplishment because the pacing, when you compare it to Genki, is a lot faster. I feel you'll learn how to make your own sentences, and you'll learn a variety of sentence structures a lot faster. But again, it's not really a fair comparison because it just skips over the 2,000 plus kanji. Yeah, there's just going to be a glaring hole. You're ultimately going to have to go back if you want to level up in Japanese. Obviously, you can't be illiterate. You're going to have to learn how to read books, comics, novels, whatever, what have you, if you really want to up your game, up your level in Japanese. And so the benefit, obviously, of the Genki textbook, it introduces the reading and the writing system in a pretty methodical way. Also gives a lot of cultural sort of background with a lot of the phrases and the expressions that are also taught in the textbook. So it gives you a more thorough, more comprehensive self-study experience. At any rate, after you have thought about it and decided what textbook will work best for you, you're going to want to learn hiragana and katakana. These are two of the three writing systems used in the Japanese language. And good news here, they actually have separate textbooks you can buy to learn hiragana and katakana, but they are completely unnecessary. Don't waste your money. Unlike kanji, these writings are really, really easy to learn. Most textbooks that you purchase will have a set of flashcards in the back of the textbook for the hiragana and katakana. That's really going to be all you'll need. First, you want to learn the readings, then you want to go back and learn the writings. So during the time that I was doing self-study, I actually had a call center job. And so what I did, I basically just took the flashcards from the back of my book and took them to work. As I was talking to the customers on the phone, I was literally just running through my flashcards. I had the readings of both hiragana and katakana down in a day. Now, that's not to say that you'll have the luxury of sitting there studying flashcards for 5 or 6 hours in a day, but it does go to show though that if you really are committed, most people won't actually have any particular issues with this aspect of learning the language. You'll hear a lot of people say that starting is the hardest part, but I'm gonna have to disagree here. Actually, not quitting, consistency. Yes, consistency is the hardest part. I probably started learning Japanese 5 or 6 times before I actually stuck with it. But honestly, if you get a rhythm, build a little bit of confidence, and don't quit, you can do it. no problem. I think really the hardest thing is in the beginning when you're going through the basics and you really just want to start talking and making your own sentences and you're finding it difficulty to say the things that you really want to say. But if you can power through, just stay consistent, don't quit, you'll see results. So now, as you're committing, yes, committing to that textbook of yours, the foundation that that's setting, I would actually recommend you get some supplemental resources at this point. What I did when I was studying at the time, I actually went to a local library that had the Pimsleur CDs available for Japanese studies, as well as a few less common or less well-known CD series as well. Now at this point, they are obviously phasing out a lot of those CD options or whatever, but they're still available at lots of libraries. And for the places where they're not available, I do believe you have they'll have ebook options available for you put a lot of those lessons and stuff right there on your mobile device. And so the way you want to use these CDs or MP3s, whatever you have access to, just use them on your commutes. Whether you're going to work, whether you're going shopping or whatever, that's at least 30 minutes a day for most people, guaranteed. And the reason I like these, even though they weren't very comprehensive, the simplicity. They had you speaking right away and they would introduce basic concepts and sentence structures that you could use almost immediately. So what winds up happening as you're going through your textbook, you're going to have a lot more familiarity with the language and you're going to have a lot more confidence as you get into these more difficult grammatical structures. At this point in the beginning stages, I wouldn't really worry too much about learning the kanji, how many kanji you need to learn in one study segment or anything like that, particularly with a textbook like Genki, because it's really going to set those pacings for you anyway. In the front section, as you're going from the front to the back, it's got your standard lessons set out for you. And then in the back of the book, like if you have section 1 in the front, there's a section 1 in the back. That section 1 in the back will correspond with the section 1 in the front, and we'll start to introduce those basic kanji for you along with their readings. Just go at the pace of the book in the beginning, and if you find that that's too slow, you can add on a kanji workbook, which they do have for the Genki series, to go alongside those. So what you don't want to do, which is exactly what I did, was get a book like Remember the Kanji and just start stuffing 40, 50 kanji in your brain at one time, because I remembered the kanji and then forgot the kanji shortly thereafter. Like, the thing was, the textbook I was using didn't actually have kanji in it, so I was remembering kanji in the Remember the Kanji book, but it was separate from any sort of readings or paragraphs or sort of writing materials, so it was very hard to really retain that information. Even if you have yourself a good textbook like Genki or anything else, you want to do it in manageable sections. You've got 2,000, 2,500 kanji to remember or go through. You're not going to cram it in. You might as well take your time and do it right. Get acclimated to it. When the pacing is too easy, too slow for you, pick it up. But if you remember a whole bunch of kanji and then forget them, you're gonna be discouraged. That's another reason why I recommend the supplemental lessons, to just kind of, again, keep a sort of sense of accomplishment, sort of like a motivator, a motivation boost, if you will, going throughout your studies. You're really gonna need that. Okay, so here's how I started to learn kanji. Like I said before, the textbook that I was using didn't actually have kanji in it. I started through Pen Pals, actually. And so if you have the Japanese characters installed on your computer, when you type in the Romaji pronunciation, it'll actually change that into Japanese for you. And so that's basically how I started. When I'm like sending introductions, things like that to all these Pen Pals, I'm really focusing on the characters. And as they're changing in a kanji, I'm really just kind of getting used to looking at them. And so it got to a point where basically any word that I could say, I was able to learn how to read it as well. Okay, so in the beginning, if you think about it, I was literally memorizing kanji pairings, essentially words and not the individual kanji readings themselves. But you can actually make this work. I made it work because think about it. If you're talking to 4 or 5 pen pals, or you keep introducing yourselves, talking about your hobbies, the things you like, that stuff won't really change too much. And so I actually started to learn naturally how kanji worked from that. Like I would notice when I would talk about certain subjects, this kanji keeps coming up when I talk about this subject, or this kanji keeps coming up when I talk about that. And so naturally you start to pick up on the readings and the meanings as well. And it's just like, it's not the most efficient way to learn kanji, but it's good practice. It's good practice. And what this did for me, it really kind of removed the fear of kanji that I had, because essentially I just jumped in and I was using it. Even if you don't necessarily memorize all of them formally, if you just start to use them, you'll begin to pick up on a lot of those patterns naturally. Okay, so believe it or not, this is the way that I learned how to read kanji. Technically, it's not the correct way, but I made it work for me. You don't have to use this as the foundation for your kanji studies, but if you just want something to supplement with your textbook studies, I definitely recommend giving this a try. And so also, go online, see if there are any close meetup groups for people that are studying Japanese in your area. I actually didn't have any meetup groups where I was located at the time, but I found out that there was a Japanese club at one of the nearby universities. So I had a chance to practice my Japanese with other language learners. And so the benefit of doing that, even if they weren't Japanese themselves, it sort of helped you build confidence because you were finding other people that were learning and were probably around the same level as you as well. Now I found for me personally, as I was going through my textbook and also going through the audio lessons that I got from the library, they reinforced each other. It's so much better to do both styles than to just stick to a textbook, or me personally, than to just listen to audio only. Like where I was really able to remember stuff is when it's not just by hearing, but for whatever reason, if I see it written down afterwards, it just, something clicks where I'm just able to remember it. Once I use those CDs or those MP3 files, I actually just made my own from the textbook. All the grammar points, all the sample sentences, I would just use my own voice, record it, and listen to those in the car as well. So I was really passively studying every day on my commutes, whether I'm going shopping or going home or going to work. And the best part about this is you don't forget the previous lessons, because it plays so often. You'll cycle through the previous lessons over and over again to where it really starts to drill in your mind. And make it fun. If you go through all the trouble of doing that, have some fun with the lessons. Be creative. But after that was completely exhausted, those resources were completely exhausted, I went on to podcasts. I'm sure they have like free podcasts and things like that you can look for online. I did pay for the ones that I used, but honestly, I only paid for like 2 or 3 months, and you can download the material off of their website once you're a member. I literally downloaded almost an endless amount of skits that were in Japanese, lessons and things like that they had. And honestly, just the variety that I used from all of these different source material really kept me engaged. And I think that really gave me a recipe for success, if you will. Because honestly, I was really frustrated many times while doing it, but I'm stubborn. I wasn't gonna quit anymore. So I'm just gonna keep doing this. And it's like those levels, they slowly, it's like, you slowly get like a little bit better. It takes a while, those progressions, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, so that's pretty much how I started my self-study journey. A lot of it was trial and error for me, but it's something honestly anyone can do. You can do it if you commit to it. So that's probably the biggest hurdle for a lot of people thinking about 2,000, 2,500 kanji when you haven't remembered 50 or 100. It's discouraging. Don't do it. Just take it little by little, step by step. But yeah, I speak Japanese. And you can too, as long as you don't quit. That's the main thing. Don't quit. Try lots of different things, see what works for you, and eventually you'll be like, hey, I'm bilingual, bro. What? Some of you are already bilingual, but for me, that was a cool thing to be able to say. I hope you are able to use some of the information, some of the tips that I had. If you have any questions about living in Japan, about language acquisition, or you just want to say what's up, please do so in the comment section below. And again, if this helps you out in any way, please consider subscribing and check out my other videos. In the meantime, homies, I will catch you on the flip side. Peace out.